Hello, friends. In 2005, Steven Spielberg put out a movie called The War of the Worlds, starring Tom Cruise. And it's a story about extraterrestrials coming down to Earth and trying to take over the Earth and use humans as food, basically. And this is a spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie. Basically, the humans try, the army and bombs and nuclear and everything to fight against the extraterrestrials, but it's a losing battle. They can't seem to win. And after all the drama and everything, at the end, the extraterrestrials start dying. And at the very end, you come to find out that they were dying of a virus that they got from the humans of the common cold. So a very tiny virus led to the destruction of the entire alien invasion. So today I'd like to consider what alien invasion is happening in our world with this coronavirus, the COVID-19, and most particularly how we can face the species level trauma that we're all enduring. I'm recording this in the United States, and the good news here is that about a third of the population have already been fully vaccinated, and the president has announced that there's vaccines for everybody. The mass vaccination campaign is going on. Now, I know that in many countries of the world, the vaccines are not available, and yet we can see the day in which those vaccines do become available, and that all of us can receive the vaccine so that the COVID-19 threat can calm down. Nevertheless, we're both sort of expectant and sort of fearful of going back into the regular world. And I think we need to all be very conscious of the effect and the continuing effects that this pandemic, that this virus has placed upon us, so that we can live a more conscious life. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've experienced a great deal of memory loss. I'm much more irritable. I'm expressing signs of depression. My productivity has tanked. Like I say, we're both excited and we're fearful about going back into the world. The virus has stimulated a worldwide stress response, and more importantly, our own personal stress response. Our nervous system is on 100% alert all of the time. Our mind-body connection has been disrupted. Our nervous system is constantly on edge, and we are, like I say, living through a species-level trauma. I mean, I come home and I am reluctant to kiss my wife, right? I'm afraid of hugging my daughter because maybe from where I've been contacted and I don't want to pass it along. If you think about it, we put on these masks. The mask we put on is to protect each other from each other. And when you really get clear on it, it's incredible. You put on your mask not because you're afraid of getting contaminated by another, because you don't want to contaminate another. So if you look at it, we have become a danger to each other just by the nature of our breath. Just by the nature of our breath, we're a danger to one another. I mean, I go on the subway, I go on the public bus, and I'm looking around, keeping my distance from everybody. Don't get close to me. The handshake is like this. I mean, everything is like separation and distance and all of that. The psychologist, Christine Runyard has written very good. She works with healthcare workers. But the last part of this quote is really something that applies to all of us. And let me read to you what she says. She says, we have asked and expected clinicians. Here she's talking about healthcare workers, but like I say, it applies to all of us. We have asked and expected clinicians to show up in ways that they were never trained to do. No one has been trained in how to emotionally manage months of mass casualties, No one has been trained how to keep showing up despite feeling feckless on the job. No one has been trained how to keep regular life afloat at home and anxiety at bay while working day after day with a little-known biohazard. I think she has expressed it beautifully. You know, it's a species-level trauma. So today I'd like to look at three aspects of this. First of all, the importance of facing this trauma. Secondary, how to endure the suffering that we have all been exposed to and are continuing to be exposed to. And thirdly, finding true satisfaction for our deepest longing. Okay? Facing the trauma, enduring the suffering, and finding satisfaction, true satisfaction for our longing. So let's start with the first, facing the trauma. When COVID-19 first appeared and the shutdown was declared, I went to work, my spiritual truth went to work. I got down my affirmations, right? I started using my essential oils, On Guard, helping me out. I created a playlist called Pura Vida playlist, or a Pure Life playlist, in which I put up songs, happy songs, and I keep my energy. I was determined to keep my energy up. It was, my affirmations and this and that, and I would dance and I would sing and I would do all these things. I had a little song during washing my hands. Of course, over time, despite my best efforts, I found myself lethargic. I find myself having difficulty focusing, sad very often, not productive, very little creativity. And, I think we all need to recognize that we are, in effect, in constant danger. Like I say, our nervous system is on edge 100% of the time. So in order to understand this and to work with it, to face this trauma, I think we need to realize a dynamic that happens in our life over and over again. Okay, this dynamic is the dynamic between attachment and separation. It happens over in our life. Both are absolutely necessary to our evolution, to our growth, to our sustenance. And yet it is a dynamic that feels very different. And it's very clearly demonstrated in the birth process, right? When we are in the womb, we are obviously totally attached to our mother, physically, emotionally, mentally, totally attached there. And that attachment is absolutely necessary for the growth of the fetus, the sustenance of the fetus, the protection of the fetus. That it's absolutely necessary. And yet after 9 months comes the time when we need to separate from the mother, a traumatic experience, I would say. And that is also necessary because we need to now continue or sustain the development. We need to grow into our own human being that we are. We couldn't do it in the womb. We need to separate from the womb, from attachment to separation, so that we can evolve, so that we can grow and develop. And I don't know if you've ever thought that if we could interview the fetus, right? If we could, hello fetus, we could interview the fetus. We'd say, look, in a little while, you're going to have to leave this place. That umbilical cord that you got, that's going to be cut off. You're going to go through this tunnel. You're going to get to the other side. It's going to be cold. You're going to be spanked right away. You're going to be in a whole new, different world. Your eyes will open. And, if the baby could speak, would say, well, I don't want any part of that. That sounds very traumatic. I want none of that. And yet we know that in order for life to go on, we need to go through that birth process. Let's call it a traumatic birth process. It is necessary for our development so that we can become distinct human beings. It requires separation from the mom. And we see this played out in life over and over again. So being born is really the beginning of autonomous life. Wonderful. But it is also an experience of loss. We've lost that beautiful, comforting womb experience, and now we're into a whole new experience. And so let me say this. Just as there can be no life without attachment, right? There can be no attachment without eventual separation, or let's call it what it is, loss and grief. Bam. There's a truth bomb, friends. Just as there can be no life without attachment, there can be no attachment without the eventual separation, grief, and loss. There is no life without either attachment or loss. Therefore, there is no life without grief. There is no life without loss. So, it's important for us to be fully aware as we're going through this species level trauma of where we are. What are we feeling? What are we thinking? What's going on? Our bodies, our thoughts, our feelings. What's happening? What's going on? We need to bring awareness to our bodies, to ourselves. Awareness, awareness, awareness. We have to face the trauma head on, and oftentimes it helps if we can name it. Say what it is that we're feeling, what we're going through. Speak it, feel it. And if you're a high consciousness individual, then you're invited to move from awareness of what is to a sense of acceptance. Well, here I am. I got short-term memory loss. I have no focus. Can't as focused. I'm not as productive. I'm feeling a little sad, a little depressed. The heaviness of all of this news and difficulties weighing on me. That's where I am. And that's what's going on. And of course, if we were to even continue that process, we sort of want to get curious about it. Look, just feel that, sense it. I wonder what else there may be there. What else am I feeling? Could I go deeper and feel that anymore? And ultimately, for the very high consciousness among us, compassion. Compassion for ourselves, for what we're going through. Compassion for others in what they're going through. So this is how we can actually face the trauma. Bring awareness to it, some acceptance, some curiosity, and then, of course, some compassion. So in our second exploration, how can we endure the suffering? For like I said, if there is no life without grief, and we know that grief and loss and danger are all around us, how do we endure this? How do we tolerate it? How do we keep up with it? How do we endure? Now, there was a philosopher in England, 16th century England, Thomas Hobbes. He was talking about a world in which there was no political community. And he was writing about what the world would be like if we did not have a political community. But listen to this and see if it doesn't apply to the species level trauma that we're living today. Thomas Hobbes says, again, speaking about political communities, he's saying, without them there'd be continual fear and danger of violent death, and human life would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Does that sound like what we're going through these days? Solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Sounds like it could be the COVID bumper sticker. And so, just like I said a moment ago, awareness acceptance, curiosity, compassion. You know, I ride the part of my commute every day is taking a bus. And oftentimes in the morning, I find the same bus driver. And this man is, you know, he's like a bodhisattva. He is just a high consciousness individual. You get onto his bus, and he looks at you and he says, "Good morning." But he says it, you know, very consciously, "Good morning." And he'll make small talk with people. And as you're leaving the bus, he'll say to you, I wish you have a wonderful day. And when he says that, you feel as if he really means what he's saying. The other day, I was walking here in New York City. And suddenly this bus stops. In the middle of the bus, there was no bus stop. The bus just stops. And the door opens, and the horn of the bus sounds. And he opens the door, and there's this guy, the bus driver, and he stopped the bus just to wave at me. He says, "Hey, how you doing?" I was floored. This guy stopped the bus, opened the door just to say hello. Wow. So one day when I was on the bus and I was getting close to him, I said, "You know, I'm so impressed with the way you handle the people on the bus. You know, everybody just feels better when they get on and they get off this bus." I said, "How do you do it?" And he says, "Oh, it's very simple. I like to stay connected." That was his answer. "I like to stay connected." Huh? And so that's what he was saying. That's what he was believing. And of course we understand that if you want to connect at a deeper level with another, you need to be willing to connect at a deeper level within yourself. Without connecting at a deeper level within yourself, you're never going to connect with another at a deeper level. So this is what this man is trained to do. He's trained to go deep within himself and find those reserves of compassion, maybe curiosity, and extend them out. Share them with others. It's a fantastic example of how to live life, how to endure the suffering that all of us are going through. And of course, we need to say in this section of enduring suffering that let's not trivialize the small things that we can do. You know, the breath work, taking those wonderful deep breaths. Don't trivialize them. They're important. They really help. And psychologists tell us that we can emphasize the out breath. We can breathe in and extend the out breath. That tends to calm the nervous system just through the simple breath. Of course, walking in nature, exercise, getting your Pura Vida playlist going, whatever that means, or listening to soft music while you're working or relaxing. You like to use scents, as I mentioned, the essential oils. They just bring up a natural easing reaction within us. The inner body meditation, any kind of meditation in which we come into awareness of where we are, bringing awareness to the body, feeling not only the surface emotions, but going deeper and feeling the essential energy of being, the inner core of being, the very nucleus of life energy within us. All that helps to restore and sustain us. And of course, we need to say that if we want to go deeper, we need to, as we understand this dynamic again between attachment and separation, and maybe we're going through a huge sense of grief and loss right now, all of us in the human community. I think surrender is a very powerful spiritual principle that we can apply on a daily basis. You know, the idea of just giving way. And the poet Rumi says it beautifully. He says in his poem, he says, "Die, die, die in this love. If you die in this love, your soul will be renewed. Die, die. Don't fear death of that which is known. And if you die to the temporal, you will become timeless. He's giving us encouragement to go ahead and surrender completely, to let go completely. And of course, Jesus said it beautifully on the cross. When everything else was done, he said, it's finished. Into thy hands I commend my spirit. A total sense of surrender. Into thy hands I commend my spirit. Wow. So let's go on to our third exploration. True satisfaction for our longing. We long for a love that will never leave. We long for a love that we always have access to. And what we need to remember over and over again is that love is not found in this world. Eckhart Tolle says it beautifully in his writing. He says, this world is not designed to make you happy. It is designed to challenge you. All your expectations are illusory and lead to suffering. One challenge after another. So we're not going to find that love that never leaves in this world. What's more, Eckhart is telling us that this world is meant to challenge us, which is exactly where we are today. We're being deeply, deeply challenged. And C.S. Lewis, right, in a sermon that he gave, said, the human creature is the only one made with desires that this world cannot satisfy. The human creature is the only one made with desires that this world cannot satisfy. And so where do we go? Well, it's actually not where do we go, but just remember who we are. And St. Augustine famously said, he's talking to God. He says, you have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. So we're being called to a deep rest within the God presence that we are. And I think to give us a vision of that longing that we desire, that can only come from conscious awareness of who and what we are. Jesus said it beautifully. This is John 47:51. Very truly I tell you, whoever believes has eternal life. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate manna in the wilderness and they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven so that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats of this bread will live forever. And of course, this 6th chapter of John is what the Catholic Church has used as the foundation of the Eucharist, where they give you the host and they say the body of Christ. And they believe that you're actually taking in the body of Christ. But I don't think Jesus was talking about himself. You know, in this translation, if we make a very small editorial correction, we're going to add one 2-letter word to Jesus' words. And we're going to hear the following. We're going to add the word is, just 2 letters. I am is the bread of life. I am is the bread that came down from heaven. And whoever eats of this bread will live forever. Talking about the nature of being. I am is the bread of life. In other words, bread, the sustenance that we need. dear friends, how to truly satisfy our longing. With all of the complications and the trauma they're going through, we're invited to make that inner connection. And maybe it sounds like a big job in this very traumatic time that we're living. But here's the truth. One taste of that bread can heal, can open up, can restore, can renew, can plant our feet firmly on the ground and calm our nervous system. We can remember who and what we are. Dear friends, one crumb, just one crumb of that bread, that I am bread that Jesus is talking about, can satiate starvation. Sometimes, one drop of water can eliminate the drought. I say sometimes. A point of light can dispel all the darkness. That's the power of conscious awareness. Sometimes one crumb satiates the starvation. Sometimes one drop eliminates the drought. Sometimes one point of light, however meager and small, can dispel all the darkness. Find your core, find your essence, find your I am. Breathe it, feel it, sense it. And there you will find true satisfaction for the love that you long for. Life is consciousness, and consciousness is life.